Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and today we're going to be looking at, and I'm going to be reviewing the Tilt 5 augmented reality glasses. Now, this is supposedly going to be a big year for augmented and mixed reality hardware. We've been covering this technology from VR to AR to MR for the past 10 years or so, and we expect to see a few devices this year, whether from Apple or from Meta, that promise to be the first steps in this all-in-one wearable device that can potentially down the line be a replacement for your smartphone, something that superimposes holograms or projected images and combines them, whether through a pass-through camera system or some optics, with what you see in the real world, so that you have overlaid digital imagery with information from the real world. But what's also interesting are maybe more niche case augmented reality technologies. AR glasses, not to replace your smartphone or to replace your laptop, but something for a very specific purpose. And that's what these are, the Tilt 5 glasses. We actually saw the beginnings of this technology about 10 years ago. Jerry Ellsworth, the creator of Tilt 5, first invented something called the Cast AR system. And the whole premise of it was to have a tabletop gaming surface that would be dynamic and holographic. It's not about superimposing these holograms on your walls or floating in front of your computer screen. It's about using the tabletop metaphor, the board game metaphor, if you will, for D&D or any type of tabletop experience to augment that playing experience, and using a very novel way to do it. So fundamentally, the technology is based on a projector-based system, not displays. On these glasses, inside of them are two pico-projectors. There are 720p projectors, and you can actually see that they're emitting light not out into the world, but they bounce off of the lenses and then bounce out into the real world onto this, what they call a game board. And the material of this game board is a retroreflective material. It means that light that shines at the material bounces almost all of it directly back at its source. Off axis, you actually don't see what the light is bouncing at. So if you shine a flashlight at it, you're going to get a light right back at that flashlight. And in turn, if you're shining a projector light, a projector image from where your eyes would be, bounce from this tiny projector here, the light from that game board bounces back into your eyes. And because these are calibrated and they know where your head is, what you then get is a stereoscopic 3D image overlaid on top of this gaming surface in true 3D, not just looking deep beneath the surface, but objects popping above it as well. They launched a Kickstarter for this a couple years ago. We visited Jerry to talk about the technology, and they finally have shipped this out to all their backers. They're actually available if you order them. They will be shipped in less than a week's time. So now seems like the appropriate time to evaluate these. I have my Kickstarter-backed Tilt 5 glasses. I have my game board set up and playing. The games are available today, including some new experiences and features they just announced, and we'll talk through all of that experience. First, the hardware and setup. The glasses themselves don't have actually any processing computing power or batteries on the inside. All of this runs over a tethered USB connection. So you plug into the glasses on one side this USB-C 3.1 connection, and this plugs into your laptop or your gaming PC. This is about a 5-foot-long cable, although you can extend it with a USB-C extender. And the nice thing is this can plug into a USB-C or A port because it's not DisplayPort. It's not DisplayPort Alt for USB-C. It's just a data connection. And what that means is as long as it's USB 3.0 or 3.1, has enough power, it can actually power these glasses, and you can power and run multiple pairs of glasses off of one single computing device. You don't need a separate laptop or PC to have multiple people at the same time wearing glasses and running some of the new multiplayer experiences. So it plugs in, you download some drivers, there's a control panel that lets you know the glasses are plugged in and ready, and then you pair this Bluetooth controller that's part of the kit that's both a wand as well as can be oriented this way, and you can use it with a thumbstick and kind of a 4-button traditional gamepad arrangement. Not as many buttons, no shoulder buttons as a full-fledged gamepad, but for the games that support it, you can also use any type of Bluetooth controller on your PC to play as well. Setup super simple. And then you load up the games, whether you download them directly from the Windows Store or Steam Store or Epic Games Store. The ones that are supported by Tilt 5, at this point, about 33 of them, launch the games. Many of them will prompt you to say they detect your glasses, they're in some Tilt 5 mode, and then you actually see the game projected onto the game board. So you need to have the surface on a table to play it. It technically doesn't need to be on a table surface. You could wall mount it, but the games are designed for a tabletop orientation. The game board that comes with the standard one is 31.5 inches by 31.5 inches. I back the extended game board, which is 31.5 inches by about 42 inches, and also has the ability to tilt up, to prop up the back of the game board, which actually lets you see further into the distance, because like a theater projection screen, the larger the surface area that you have the image on, the more stereoscopic 3D you can get, the further you can potentially look into the virtual world. This material isn't all that expensive. In fact, there are third-party fans who have already made rollable game boards that people can buy, and you could theoretically, buy paint that has the retroreflective material and paint up a wall, as long as it has the tracking markers, these dots around the game board that the headset can recognize. That's all you need for that positional tracking. So in here, not only are there the two projectors, there are also two cameras that allow to track the controller in positional tracking as well as where your head is. No base stations, no other type of tracking needed, but you do need to see these tracking dots, these tracking markers. Now, ergonomically, this is fairly lightweight. It's about 100 grams. The glasses have kind of a bendy arms here, so they wrap around your head. They're not padded in the back, but they're not uncomfortable either, and they actually fit really well over glasses and work well over glasses. The nose bridge, which is replaceable, I think is a little bit high for me, so I would like to see a longer nose bridge option that I didn't receive. And there are built-in speakers and a microphone. Although the speakers on each of the arms, even though they provide 3D positional audio, they're not very loud speakers. They're kind of just game speakers. I would prefer to play this with headphones. They're sufficient, but not great. You do hear the fans that are cooling the projectors as you're running them. They are noticeable. If I plug this in, you might be able to hear the fans spin up as the headset boots up. But once I'm in game, I got used to it. It wasn't a thing where I was annoying anyone else in the room when I was running this. And you can hear actually the fan right now. A little bit of that whirring. As you put the glasses on your face, they're a little more prominent, but like I said, not entirely distracting once I'm in game. So unplug those right now. Now, in terms of the image quality, so these are two 720p projectors in here, which means the resolution is kind of low. Now, they're projectors, so you actually have a high fill factor. The pixels are right next to each other, so you don't see the grid lines of a screen door effect, but you do see aliasing. And the low resolution has its benefits and trade-offs. It means that from a system requirement standpoint, you don't need a very powerful computer to run the Tilt 5. That's why you can run multiple headsets off of one computer. And on my laptop, the games ran pretty perfectly. You can actually disable mirroring on the PC side, so you don't see the game rendered multiple times. But I tend to leave that on and bump up the resolution, whether for game capture or so someone else in the room can see what I'm seeing as well. But that low resolution does mean that text isn't very sharp. I don't see this as a way to browse the web or do any type of productivity work. You're playing games with user interface elements, text, and buttons that are relatively big, readable, but I would not call it sharp. I will call it vibrant, though, because once you do find a sweet spot where your eyes are aligned to where the projector is, the two projectors are, the colors and the brightness are really vibrant. And something that was surprising to me, but I guess makes sense, is that the projectors don't need to be very bright at all. In fact, they only emit about 0.65 lumens per eye, which is why on some of the video that we're filming, we're trying to see what the projected image is from a third person point of view, you can't actually see it. And in fact, even if you put your hands in front of the projectors and you naturally occlude the image, you're not going to see a bright image on whatever you're blocking with. Because of that retroreflector technology and material, the light that bounces on through the polarized filter into the material and back into your eye, it looks bright without a lot of light needed to be emitted from the projectors themselves. Also, as an augmented reality headset goes, the pass-through actually works really well. What I mean is that these are just clear polarized lenses. You can see stereoscopic image, but the amount of light from the outside world that comes in, the amount of visibility you get is almost 85%. I mean, in a bright room, in a dark room, in a well-lit room like this, I can see almost anything going on in that space. It doesn't look like I'm wearing sunglasses, which is a big difference in some of the other augmented reality systems I've used in the past. The field of view is pretty wide at 110 degrees horizontal, and I think the projectors are oriented such that they're maximizing that horizontal field of view. Vertical field of view is a little bit narrower, and in fact, even when I found that sweet spot for where my eyes are in aligned with the glasses, I could see kind of a cutoff where the image was cut off. The projected image had a line cut off where I couldn't see above it. So a little bit of adjustment needed to balance between a clear and bright image and maximizing your field of view. Something that also affects the brightness and clarity of image is the distance between your head and the glasses and the actual retroreflective material. There also seems to be a sweet spot distance as well. The projectors don't adjust brightness, so they don't know, for example, with any type of depth sensing, like how far your retroreflective material is, so they're not amplifying light and making it brighter as you're moving further away. So about 1.5 to 2 feet, standard sitting and having a game board in front of you, the image is great there. If you get too close, it might lose sight of the tracking markers and you lose image. And if you go too far back, the image does fade away because the projectors aren't being bumped up. And I don't think you necessarily want it to be as such because you don't want a full blast, pico-projector bouncing right into your eye. They've kind of calibrated as such to be the sweet spot. Something that was also interesting was how smooth the image is. Jerry told me that they're using reprojection inside the headset itself, and so while games run at about 60 hertz on your gaming system, they're reprojected and boosted up to 180 frames per second when they're in the glasses. Now, I did notice some artifacts, the telltale signs of reprojection, where the images may look like they're warping a little bit, they're looking a little askew if I move my head too fast left and right. But I was pretty impressed by that reprojection in terms of how comfortable it made this headset feel. And I didn't notice any type of high persistence, blurring of the images as I moved them back. It wasn't like I was getting the kind of ghosting or doubling effect. It was only the kind of warping effect that I'd noticed for reprojection. And the benefits, I think, far outweigh the costs there in terms of how believable and how realistic these holograms look on the game board. They do look perfectly affixed, like they're these glowing objects right here. And it all boils down to this being one of the most comfortable AR experiences I've ever used. In fact, this is one of the few devices where I have no hesitancy, I no qualms about just telling someone, anyone, a kid, adult, anyone of all ages, to try it and put it on because the experience is so immediately there and joyful. There's no learning curve. You're putting on glasses, and as long as you're looking at the game board, the projected image just works. There's no need for like VR legs, for example. People don't get sick after wearing this, which is a testament to the priorities they've put into this device in terms of its performance and the fundamentals of that projector-based technology. Comfort and ease of use also is a priority when it comes to this wand controller, because they could have went with a bunch of different controller ideas. They went with something that was intuitive. You're holding this with a trigger, it kind of looks like a lighter for a stove, right, for your barbecue. But in fact, what they're tracking is the tip of this wand kind of cast out onto the virtual image. Now, it's not a direct cast. Most of the experiences have this kind of arc that goes goes from the tip, and then you're dragging objects, so you're not necessarily having to point down directly at them. And in fact, one of the experiences, Figment XR, does some cool things with magnetically attaching, where you're casting your beam to the menu icons, everything kind of snaps in place. The registration, I thought, from the beam that's being cast to the tip of this wand wasn't perfect. There's a little bit of misalignment, but the latency and responsiveness was certainly there, where games that require the gyro or precision pointing, I never felt like I was disconnected. It actually felt like this was interacting with those objects in real time. You can, like I said, use this in a gamepad orientation, but I think the buttons and the joystick here don't feel that great. They're far from the Xbox or PS5 controllers. They're a little bit they feel a little bit generic, and so for any gamepad game, I would recommend using an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller. And because the system is designed for one-wand-based control, you lose a lot of the two-handed attributes of immersive gaming. So there's no, pulling, pinch to pull, two-handed manipulation of objects, which I felt was lacking and something I would want. So something that I think they're working on is hand tracking in the future. So whether that's hand tracking combined with the wand or two-hand tracking, I feel like more input options will be useful in the future. In terms of games, on the Tilt 5 website, they list 33 games right now since their launch that now support the headset. And the vast majority of these are ports, kind of indie games, puzzle games, some platforming games that are available on Steam that over time have now adopted and used their Unity SDK and have made it compatible with Tilt 5. And a lot of these are really fun, interesting experiences. One of my favorites is Battle Planet, which has this kind of Super Mario Galaxy-like sphere that you're playing on, that you're running on, and you're using a two-stick analog system for moving as well as firing, kind of like a Smash TV. And when projected on a 32 by 32 inch game board and have that map right there filling up this space, I think it's a far superior experience on Tilt 5, even at lower resolution, than on a flat screen experience. It being 3D, it being having depth, objects coming up above the game board, really, really fun, and even low resolution graphics go a long way. There are also a couple games that are kind of diorama analogs. There are mystery solving games and an actual diorama builder. Figment XR is a good example of this. It's a sandbox where you're using the surface area of the game board as a place to drop in 3D models, to examine 3D spaces, and it's something that really is suitable for tabletop, for that tabletop experience, rather than looking at a laptop screen or a computer monitor where you have the flat surface kind of at an angle. Here, the flat surface is the flat surface, and you can actually see objects coming out of it and look around it. Every game has a different mechanism for moving the virtual camera around. I wish there was some more consistency on that, and that's some place where I feel like having two-handed control, again, would be a much beneficial experience. Tilt 5 also has partnered with some publishers to develop their own games. So it comes with a demo pack with a bunch of mini games that they've developed. But this past year, they also announced Takenoko, which is a very popular tabletop card game. And now that actually supports a four-player local multiplayer. So someone with two pairs, 3 or 4 pairs of Tilt 5 glasses can all plug them into a single PC, and they can either be spectators or they can actively participate with their own wands. The system will now recognize those, and it's one step closer to that promise of the game night where every player, every participant is not just hot swapping and moving the glasses around, but they're all looking at the same 3D image at the same time. Settlers of Catan, and the publisher of that game series, also is partnering with Tilt 5, so that's supposed to come out later this year. So hopefully we're going to see more of these very popular tabletop games have a polished AR version that really, again, is suited for tabletop AR. But outside of that, outside going through some of those games, doing something like Figment XR or a Mark's Magnificent Marble Maze, really like that gyro-based Marble Maze game, it really feels like this is suited for quick pick up and play experiences, 5 to 10 minutes, not necessarily long duration, even though the glasses are comfortable. And it's a reflection of the kinds of indie games and the style of games that are being ported over to Tilt 5 right now. For D&D players, there is a battle map studio where you can generate maps and campaigns, but again, that's only this single player experience right now. That multiplayer SDK had only just recently been released. One of the things they did work hard at is finding a way for gamers to stream that experience, because AR, as immersive as it is, can be kind of isolating because people in the outside world just have no idea what you're looking at. I mean, they can look at a flat screen representation on your computer screen, but aside from wearing glasses, it's hard to see what AR is about. Mixcast is a company and a system that now works with Tilt 5. It's actually what I'm using to show a simulated view of what the Tilt 5 experience looks like. And it's a system that works actually really well. I have a camera set up looking over my shoulder. It can see the tracking markers. And then I tell the system I'm using Tilt 5 glasses. It actually recognizes the tracking markers, and games that support Mixcast and Tilt 5 then have a perspective that's oriented correctly over this calibrated camera view, which is how you can see these holograms on top of the game surface as I'm playing the game right now. But trust me, the games in 3D, in stereo, look even more immersive, although the resolution I think is a little misleading because it looks sharp to you on the screen, and like I said, at that 720p projectors, a little bit more fuzzy and aliased in headset. At this point, even though Tilt 5 has fulfilled all their Kickstarter obligations and the games have been out some for a couple years now even, it feels like it's still just the beginning of where Jerry and their team want to take this technology and what the user base can take advantage in terms of the promises that were made. With that multiplayer SDK, I think that's a move in the right step. Things like Mixcast to get people to be able to stream the content, and more partners. But 33 games that you have to buy separately, $360 set of glasses and wands, and then you use your own PC to play, is a pretty heavy investment, even for early adopters. And even though they've done a great job in terms of making it comfortable, in making a setup process dead simple, the friction here is in terms of the space required, the dedicated physical space. Not everyone's going to have this much space to lay out a 32 by 32 inch game board and have a laptop to set up to play a marble game for 20 minutes a day. So one of the places I can see this really making a lot more sense, at least at this stage, is location-based experiences. I mean, this seems like a no-brainer to have at science museums, at cafes or arcades, or even theme parks, a place where people or the institutions can set up a PC, can set up multiple pairs of glasses, have everything queued up, and then people can drop in. And like I said, it's so easy to pick up and play something intuitive like a marble game, like a Bomberman style game, or an adventure game, and play for 10-15 minutes without having that make that kind of investment. It has that immediate appeal and immediate joy in that it just is a lot just initially get set up. And one of the things I'd love to see is also some type of game launcher, to make that process even more frictionless. Right now, if I have my laptop, I need to boot up the control panel, I need to launch Unity executables or launch games individually on Steam. What I want to see is the ability for someone to plug this in and without having to look at their PC, put on the glasses, and have some type of launcher or have some type of UI in the glasses itself as a default to then launch games, or even some basic utilities like a 3D model viewer, an OBJ, an STL viewer would be awesome, or some type of media player, something that makes it more than just a gaming device, but something with some type of novel utility for shared collaborative work in an office environment or something. I'm sure that Jerry and her team are thinking about all these things, and they only have so many resources to focus, but getting the important things initially right in terms of making it comfortable, forming these partnerships, bringing familiar names like Takenoko or Catan. It seems to be moving in the right step. So I really hope that the users give it a chance, that they find good partnerships to deploy these in more public spaces for people to try out. And I'll be keeping an eye on more software, what software experiences comes for the Tilt 5 platform in the future. I think they've done a really great job with the hardware, but the barriers to entry, primarily cost, may be too high right now. We'll have more coverage of AR technologies and consumer products in the coming weeks and months. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.